Today, I'm talking to Michael, who is currently the head of UX for MTM Research. It's a role that he got recently. Previously, he was head of Qual at Sparkler. And I first met Michael many years ago when he was doing a brilliant paper on why young adults go into terrorism. It was a qualitative piece of work, Michael. It was brilliant. And what I'm really interested in today is how you've moved from being an excellent qualitative researcher into this UX area. Michael, it would be great if you could start by telling us just a little bit more about your current role and what really excited you about joining MTM and heading up UX for them.
Well, thanks for that, Liz. I remember that counter-terrorism paper, and it feels like a long time ago now. I think having this research career has provided me with lots of different opportunities. I used to work in social research, where that paper came from. Had many years of commercial research, now most recently with Sparkler, where I was head of Qual, and now I'm head of UX research at MTM. And MTM's a great agency. I've known about them for a long time. They've got a really exciting mix of clients because they specialise in technology work, but also media and entertainment. And that puts them in a really interesting position from a UX point of view, because, for instance, in the media space, thinking about video platforms and streaming platforms and broadcasters, the battleground is really with the interface and the user experience of interfaces, and the focus on interfaces and getting those right for customers and for users is going to be really important in that sector going forward. So the opportunity to work in those kinds of areas really interests me. And then MTM's got a fantastic track record, won loads of awards, most recently the New Consumer Insights at the MRS, and it's currently up for 3 Mediatel awards as well. So it's an agency I really wanted to work with. And I think for MTM, the UX space, I think this is true of lots of agencies working in the kind of technology area. There are opportunities to move out into different sectors. So for MTM, potentially away from media and entertainment and into other technology related spaces. It could be fintech or food technology. And so UX provides a platform for doing that, for taking our expertise around consumer use of and experience of technology and moving that out into different areas and working with different sorts of clients.
That's really interesting, because I tend to have a very narrow view of UX and think it's all about sort of website experience, but it's interesting to see how it actually goes into all these different areas. And could you tell me a little bit more about the sort of studies that all those different areas are looking at or wanting to do?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I think often when you speak to people initially about UX and UX research, they tend to have quite a limited view of kind of troubleshooting websites and apps and doing very tactical usability research to, where should the buttons go, or what should the content design be like. And there is that element too. I mean, usability and testing usability is really, really important, but there's a whole area around that about the discovery of the user experience, the discovery of user needs, and understanding some of those foundational insights. So a lot of the work that we do deals with big strategic questions, and not just tactical usability questions, big strategic questions like, what should the role of a website or an app be for a business? What should it perform for them? What should it do for them? What user needs should it serve? So what are the unmet user needs of their customer base that this app could serve and play into? How should their brand be expressed through the visual identity of that site and through the content design of that site? And how do you make that experience overall, the experience of using that platform, not just kind of functional and reliable and user-friendly, but also that a really pleasurable, enjoyable experience as well. So I think there are big strategic questions that we can address with UX research, as well as going into the more granular detail of the usability and what that looks like.
That's really interesting. So what does that mean for who your clients are? Are they insight managers? Are they marketing managers? Is it a separate UX function?
I think there's an evolution taking place. So who you're dealing with and what the insight client looks like will very much depend on the level of, I suppose, like maturity of that business as far as user experience and user experience research goes. So if you're working with a big tech company where user experience research is very established, they'll typically be separate teams of UX researchers versus kind of market insight departments. So that would be true in places like Google and Facebook. And there are quite big differences, I think, if you're client side, depending on whether you're working in UX or market insights. So market insights, typically you're sat in a team of researchers and you're commissioned to work on behalf of the organization, but you've got this research team around you. Whereas if you're on the UX side, you're sitting within the product team. So you're sitting with the product manager and software developers and designers and perhaps data analytics people, and you're working with them on a particular aspect of the product, service, or the app, or whatever it might be. And that can be, I mean, yeah, there are good and bad elements to that. That can be quite isolating from a research point of view when you're the only researcher in the team, but it also gets you very close to the product and its design and development in a way that you might not always be if you're in the market insights team. And in those big tech companies, the projects will be commissioned both out of the market insights team on one level, talking about kind of brand and communications projects and that sort of thing, and from the UX researchers, they were talking about, you know, the website, the app, the product itself. I guess in businesses that, you know, are less mature from a tech point of view, a lot of UX research is out of the you know, the market research team. So I think it'll really vary depending on the kind of client that we're working with, and we'll approach it from both directions as far as MTM is concerned.
What does it mean for skills? How does the work that you do on a day-to-day basis differ from what you were doing as a qualitative researcher?
Yeah, well, I'm still a qualitative researcher, so I'm a qualitative researcher working in UX, and I think all the fundamentals of qualitative research are still the same in terms of how you think about a project, how you design it, the skills that you need to interview people and to observe interactions, and you know, all of the analysis skills and reporting skills. That's a lot of that is still the same. I think from one of the things that people looking to make the transition from market research to UX research have to think about is just some of the methodological differences. And the main thing is that UX research is much more observational and much more about behaviours and less about opinions than the market research is. So, you know, often we're interested in people's opinions, but much more interested in how they interact with an interface or with a service and their behaviours around that, and capturing all of that. And I think that's a big transition for market researchers to make, where when we're dealing with communications, branding and advertising, we're really much more interested in people's opinions. And there are different techniques that go along with that. So if you're looking to make the transition, I think understanding some of those UX techniques, like what is a heuristic evaluation, what is a contextual inquiry, how do I do tree testing, some of these things is really, really important. But the fundamentals are the same, whether you're a quality or a quantity moving into UX. I think that the other big difference from an agency point of view is just the rhythms of work, because often in UX research, we're working quite a different way, where it's not we're not working towards a big glossy PowerPoint presentation at the end, as we often are in market research. And it's a more collaborative process where we're working with the UX researchers on the client side, working in close collaboration with them, because they need to understand findings fully as part of the product team. And so working very collaboratively with them to get the insights in as quickly as possible as well, because often these projects are taking place on very fast sort of sprint cycles. So the speed, the agility of work, and the getting the insights in the moment rather than waiting for the end of the project are some of the big differences compared to more traditional market research ways of working.
And do you know, is there a way that a qualitative researcher, I guess, other than working in an agency that's doing UX research, is there any advice on how they would get those skills?
There are big opportunities in UX at the moment. We've seen that, sort of during COVID and beyond, lots of opportunities for qualies, especially to move client side or into agency roles to do UX, and there's a big appetite to draw people in. It's been interesting because in the past that wasn't the case, and the pool of UX researchers was much smaller, and certainly in the big tech companies, they only took people who'd got certain qualifications like HCI, human computer interaction, that they've done degrees or masters or PhDs, and the pool has widened massively, and the industry is quite welcoming of market researchers and people with research skills now, so which I think is great. I'd say, if you've got those fundamental qual skills, you're well on the right path. And if you're interested in getting into UX, do some reading. I mean, the great thing about UX is it's really active from a kind of publishing point of view, and there's lots of discussion out there. So there's loads of really great books. There's lots of discussion on places like Medium, where you can find out what UX researchers are up to and what the job looks like and the kinds of things that they're doing. But there's lots of training on offer as well. And I think, if you're looking to make that transition, you might want to think about just investing in yourself a little bit. There are places like IDEO and lots of online and London-based organisations that offer UX research training. It's well worth taking a look at that. So there's definitely no shortage of resources. And of course, if you're looking to make transition, also trying to position yourself to get on some of those more tech-led projects at the place where you're currently working. Because I think one of the things is that every business is a technology business now, and every business needs to have a really good app, a really good website in order to either promote itself or to sell things. And so I think that the convergence of market research and UX is only going to get stronger. And I think it's just one of the tools that researchers will have to have in their toolkit will be how to do UX research really well alongside doing creative development and doing brand strategy work and all of the other things that qualitative researchers do.
How do you see UX evolving in the future? Obviously, you see it growing from the sounds of things, becoming more and more important and more integrated into every business. But is there anything else you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely right. I think it's only going to grow in importance as technology becomes more and more important to businesses, and we're now at the kind of advent of the metaverse and Web3. We're doing some work at MTM at the moment on those things to help businesses understand what those developments might mean for them as organisations, commercially as well. So I think that lean into technology is only going to increase and probably accelerate. So I think there's UX research to be at the forefront of that. If you want to be at the forefront of the research industry, then UX is the place to be, and understanding those big technological shifts is the place to be.
Thank you, Michael. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Perhaps the only other thing to say, it's sort of related to that last question, is that UX, working in UX and UX research really gives you an opportunity to work with the businesses and work inside the trends really shaping everyday life. So it's a place where you can get to work with Meta and Google and understand what they're up to and the technologies that they're developing that will affect all of us, and to really think about and understand the user experience of the metaverse, emerging Web3 technologies. And I think if that's something that you're interested in, then getting involved in UX research is and understanding skills and the methodologies needed to do that sort of work is really important.